This guy has Trump derangement syndrome. He needs to get, you're a failed politician.
At what point did the FBI and the DOJ decide that Lex Wessner was not a co-conspirator? Because our Epstein Files Transparency Act requires you, please put it back on the screen, please, to release the internal decision about whether to prosecute him or not, and it's not in the files, and it's not in the files for any of these other men.
Time of the gentleman has expired.
May she answer?
And he's a hypocrite because he voted against the ban that we were talking about on deep fake AI porn. Only 2 people voted against it, and you were one of them, hypocrite.
As we sit here today, there are over 1,000 sex trafficking victims, and you have not held a single man accountable. Shame on you. If you had any decency, you would resign right after this hearing concludes.
The time of the gentleman has expired.
May I respond?
Yeah, I don't know how you respond. No one can.
I did not ask a question, Ms.
You're allowed to.
I did not ask a question.
Crime in California. He does not want to talk about
I did not ask a question.
crime in his state.
She can't just add lip stuff. I did not ask a question.
Tense and angry scenes in the US Congress today, where the Attorney General Pam Bondi has been under intense pressure from Democrats over the Justice Department's handling of the Epstein files. Called upon to apologize to Epstein survivors in the room, Bondi said she would not get into the gutter and do so. Let's talk now to LBC's Washington correspondent, Simon Marks. Simon, a fairly spectacular series of exchanges. Just tell us more.
Yes, absolutely combustible scenes on Capitol Hill, Andrew, and it's not now only Democrats that find themselves on the receiving end of the Attorney General's utter disdain for what is supposed to be a process of accountability that she is due to be cooperating with. She is instead stonewalling even Republicans who ask her questions that she deems hostile. She's been questioned by Congressman Thomas Massie of Kentucky, a man who's considered a traitor and a turncoat by Donald Trump for pushing to get more information out from the Department of Justice about Jeffrey Epstein and the full release of all the documents that the Department of Justice still has in its possession. He wanted to know from the Attorney General why the most recent release had been botched, why so many of Epstein's victims say that their data was not properly redacted by the Department of Justice before that document dump was offered to the public. And Pam Bondi has not only refused to answer his question, but she has witheringly dismissed him as a failed politician. What we are witnessing here today, Andrew, is a collapse of the system of checks and balances that gives Congress the right to question Pam Bondi about what she is doing in one of the highest offices in the land.
A huge moment for American politics. Simon, thank you so much for that. The Attorney General, Pam Bondi, has faced harsh criticism for the White House's decision not to investigate Andrew Mountbatten Windsor. Philip Lacovara is the former Deputy Solicitor General of the United States and was counsel to the Watergate Special Prosecutor under Richard Nixon. Thank you very much indeed for joining us tonight. The pressure on Pam Bondi over Andrew is slightly puzzling, perhaps, because there are so many big American names in the frame, and yet the former Prince Andrew seems to have become a kind of lightning rod or a symbol of the Trump administration's willingness to push further on this investigation.
I think that's one of the things that's so puzzling about this. Prince Andrew has obtained a degree of prominence in the investigation that probably is well beyond what the typical American is concerned about. I think one of the reasons why there is so much a focus on the former prince is that he seems to have been rather clearly involved in some of the worst abuses by Jeffrey Epstein and his enabler, Ghislaine Maxwell. So while some of the information about other high-profile names is more sketchy, the information about the former prince is pretty spot on and undeniable.
This got very personal, very, very angry quite quickly between Pam Bondi and the congressman. Do you understand why that's the case? Do you understand why she is so touchy about this?
Well, she's feeling under a good deal of pressure, not only from Democrats, but also from the general public. There's a widespread view in the American population that the Epstein investigation has been mishandled. And the Pam Bondi a couple of months ago had said that she had on her desk a list of the people who were involved with Epstein. And when she was asked to turn that over, she said, well, I never really had a list. And that then led to legislation requiring that the Justice Department had to disclose all of its files, which has turned out to be millions of pages. And she has been the person who's the lightning rod for the bungling of this investigation into Epstein.
As I mentioned, you were involved in Watergate, which I guess is the American equivalent. We say this goes back, it's the biggest scandal since the Profumo affair of 1964, or whatever it was. And I guess
I even remember that.
Well, there you go. And Watergate's a bit the equivalent, I guess, in America. Where do you think this huge, huge scandal is going to lead in the end?
I don't think anybody else is going to be indicted, which is the odd part of it. And that's one of the things that's been so frustrating to many observers and to the victims of Epstein's abuses, because he did not do this alone. There were apparently many other men who were taking advantage of the women that Epstein provided to them. And yet none of them has been subjected to any sort of prosecution or any other kind of consequences. And indeed, one of the things that Pam Bondi is being pushed on during these current hearings is that the Justice Department appears to have concealed the names of some of the people who were involved with Epstein and victims, while at the same time improperly disclosing the names and identities of some of the victims themselves. So it's an odd inversion of what should have been going on. The culprits should be exposed and the victims protected.
Odd and outrageous. Philip, thank you very much indeed for helping us. Thanks so much.